1 week after my son's death, I found his phone in my mailbox, covered in mud. I turned it on and watched the last video he recorded. He was smiling, celebrating with his wife. Then I saw something move behind him, and the screen went black, but I could still hear his voice, whispering something terrible. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. My name is Hazel Brennan, and I am 68 years old. For most of my life, I believed that age would bring me peace. A garden to tend, grandchildren to spoil, and the gentle rhythm of days unmarked by urgency. Instead, I stand at my kitchen window in Cedar Falls, Oregon, holding my dead son's muddy phone in my trembling hands, and I know that peace is a luxury I can no longer afford. The phone arrived exactly 1 week after Adam's funeral, 7 days after I'd watched them lower my only child into the ground beside his father's grave. 7 days after his wife, Rebecca, had collapsed so dramatically at the graveside that 3 people had to help her to the car. 7 days after the police had closed the case, ruling it an accidental drowning during his solo camping trip to Mirror Lake. But Adam hated camping. He was terrified of deep water. The mailbox had been empty that morning when I'd checked it at dawn, my ritual since Thomas passed 5 years ago. But when I returned from my afternoon walk, the same route I've taken for 30 years through the pine-scented trails behind my property, there it was. A small package wrapped in a plastic grocery bag. No postage. No return address. Just my name written in shaky pencil on a torn piece of cardboard. Hazel Brennan. Inside, Adam's phone. I recognized the Spider-Man case immediately. A gift from his daughter, my granddaughter Roberta, now 13 and staying with Rebecca's mother in Seattle, until things settled down. The phone was caked in dried mud. The screen cracked in one corner. But when I pressed the power button, it hummed to life with 23% battery remaining. My hands shook as I entered his passcode. We'd always shared them, Adam and I, ever since he was a teenager sneaking out to see girls I pretended not to know about. 4 digits. 0821. August 21st. The day his father proposed to me 45 years ago. The phone opened to his video gallery. The most recent file was dated the day before his death, September 14th, 10:47 p.m. The thumbnail showed Adam's face, smiling, almost laughing. My breath caught. I hadn't seen him smile like that in months, not since he'd confided in me about his suspicions regarding Rebecca's late nights at the hospital. She was a nurse, or so she said, working double shifts to save for Roberta's college fund. I pressed play. The video was dark at first, just the sound of Adam's breathing and the crackle of a campfire. Then his face filled the screen, illuminated by dancing orange light. He was in a tent, sitting cross-legged, and he was grinning, genuinely, joyfully grinning. "Mom," he said softly, almost whispering, "I wish you could see this. I wish you were here." He turned the camera slightly, revealing Rebecca beside him, her blonde hair loose around her shoulders, a champagne bottle between them. "We're celebrating. Really celebrating. She told me everything, Mom. About the gambling, the money she owed, the people she'd gotten mixed up with. She's done with all of it. She promised. We're going to start over, just the 3 of us. Roberta's going to have the life she deserves." My chest tightened. Gambling? What people? Adam had mentioned concerns about Rebecca's behavior, erratic spending, mysterious phone calls, her defensiveness when he asked questions, but nothing like this. On the screen, Rebecca leaned into frame, her smile wide but her eyes oddly flat. "Hi, Hazel," she said, her voice too bright. "We wanted you to be the first to know." "New chapter, right, Danny?" Adam squeezed her shoulder, still beaming. "New chapter," he echoed. "I'll call you tomorrow, Mom. I'll explain everything. But tonight, we're just going to—" He stopped mid-sentence. His smile faltered. His eyes shifted to something behind Rebecca, off camera. "What?" he started to say. Then the screen went black, but the audio continued. Scuffling sounds. Rebecca's voice, sharp and panicked. "No, wait, I didn't—" A crash. Adam's breathing, fast and ragged. Footsteps running, branches breaking. Heavy breathing, his breathing, punctuated by small gasps of pain. And then, so faint I had to press the phone against my ear, his voice. "Mom, Mom, Cardinal. Cardinal rule. Mom. Cardinal rule. Our secret code. The phrase we'd invented when he was 8 years old and got separated from me at the state fair. If you're ever in danger, I'd told him. If you ever need me to know something's wrong but can't say it directly, say cardinal rule. It meant, trust no one but me. It meant, I need you. The audio cut off abruptly. I played it again, then again. Each time my heart hammered harder against my ribs. Each time I heard more details. A man's voice, gruff and distant, saying something that sounded like, in the truck. Rebecca crying, or maybe laughing. The sound was distorted. And Adam, my son, whispering my name and our code like a prayer. The police had found his body 3 days after Rebecca reported him missing. He'd drowned in Mirror Lake, they said, probably hit his head on a rock while swimming at night. His kayak had been found overturned near the shore. There were no signs of foul play. Rebecca had been camping at a site 2 miles away. She had an alibi. Another couple had seen her at the ranger station that evening, frantically reporting him missing. But Adam hadn't drowned. Someone had chased him through the woods. Someone had been in that tent. And Rebecca, my daughter-in-law, the woman I'd welcomed into my home, the mother of my only grandchild, Rebecca had known. I sat at my kitchen table as the afternoon light faded, the phone between my hands, and made myself think clearly. Adam was resourceful. If he'd escaped, if he'd been injured and hiding, he would have tried to get a message to me. The phone in my mailbox wasn't random. Someone had found it, found him, and followed his instructions. The question was, where was he now? I scrolled through his recent calls. Most were to Rebecca or Roberta or his office. He was an accountant for a mid-size firm in Portland, 40 minutes from Cedar Falls. But 3 days before the camping trip, there was a number I didn't recognize, called twice within an hour. I dialed it. It rang 4 times, then went to a generic voicemail. I hung up and tried again. This time someone answered. Hello? A woman's voice, older, cautious. My name is Hazel Brennan, I said carefully. My son Adam called this number recently. I'm trying to understand why. Silence. Then, who gave you this number? No one gave it to me. It's in his phone. I paused, changing tactics. He's in trouble. I think you might know something about it. Another pause. Mrs. Brennan, you should stop asking questions. For your own safety. Who are you? I pressed. Please, he's my son. If you know anything... He came to me for information, the woman interrupted, her voice dropping lower. About his wife's associates. I told him it was dangerous, that these people don't forget debts or betrayals. I told him to take his family and disappear. He said he couldn't do that to his mother. A bitter laugh. Noble. Stupid. I'm sorry, Mrs. Brennan, I truly am. But if your son crossed them, if he tried to interfere with their business, then what happened at that lake wasn't an accident. And if you keep digging, you'll end up the same way. The line went dead. I set the phone down, my pulse roaring in my ears. The kitchen suddenly felt too exposed, too vulnerable. I stood and locked the back door, then the front, then checked every window. Outside, dusk had settled over the property, turning the pine trees into dark sentinels. My home, this modest 2-bedroom house on 5 acres of Oregon forest, had always been my sanctuary. Thomas and I had built it ourselves, slowly, over years of scrimping and saving. After he died, Adam had wanted me to sell it, move closer to him and Rebecca in Portland, but I'd refused. This was where I'd raised my son, where I'd buried my husband's ashes in the garden. This was mine. Now, for the first time, I felt afraid in it. I returned to Adam's phone and opened his photo gallery, scrolling through months of images. Roberta at her soccer games, Rebecca at a charity gala, Adam and his co-workers at a retirement party. Normal. Mundane. Then I reached the week before the camping trip, and the photos changed. Pictures of documents, screenshots of text messages, a photo of a man I didn't recognize, taken from across a parking lot, middle-aged, heavyset, walking toward a black SUV. Another photo of the same man entering a building with a sign I couldn't quite read. Adam had been investigating. He'd been gathering evidence, and someone had noticed. I zoomed in on one of the document photos. It was a bank statement, but not from any account I recognized. The name on it was Rebecca's, but the amounts were staggering. Deposits of $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 appearing every few weeks, then withdrawn just as quickly. The memo line on one deposit read, "Consultation fee." What kind of consultation required cash payments in the middle of the night? A knock at the front door made me jump so violently I nearly dropped the phone. I froze, every muscle locked. Another knock, softer this time, almost apologetic. "Mrs. Brennan?" A man's voice, unfamiliar. "I'm sorry to bother you so late. My name is Marcus Webb. I'm a private investigator. I believe we need to talk about your son." I approached the door with Adam's phone clutched in my cardigan pocket, my other hand gripping the baseball bat Thomas had kept by the coat rack. A relic from his weekend softball league, now a widow's insurance policy. Through the peephole, I saw a man in his mid-40s, lean and tired-looking, holding a leather wallet open to display a license. Private investigator, just as he'd said. I opened the door but kept the chain latched. "What do you want?" Marcus Webb lowered the wallet slowly, his movements deliberate, non-threatening. "I was hired to look into your son's death, not by the police. They've closed the case. By someone who believes the official story doesn't add up. Who hired you? I can't disclose that yet. But I can tell you that I've been following Rebecca Brennan for 2 weeks, and 3 days ago, I watched her meet with a man named Victor Kozlov in a parking garage downtown. Does that name mean anything to you?" My throat tightened. "No. He runs a high-stakes poker operation out of a warehouse near the waterfront. Very exclusive, very illegal, and very dangerous for people who can't pay their debts. Your daughter-in-law owed him close to $200,000. He paused, watching my reaction. "May I come in, Mrs. Brennan? We shouldn't discuss this on your porch." Every instinct screamed caution, but I needed answers more than safety. I unlatched the chain and stepped back, keeping the bat visible. Webb entered and closed the door behind him, his eyes scanning the room with professional efficiency before settling on me with something almost like sympathy. "You found something," he said quietly. "That's why you're holding a bat and standing like you expect someone to break down your door." I hesitated, then pulled out Adam's phone. This arrived today, in my mailbox. No explanation, no sender, just this. Webb's expression sharpened. "The police said his phone was never recovered. They assumed it went into the lake with him." He held out his hand. "May I?" I gave it to him and watched as he scrolled through the video, his jaw tightening as Adam's voice filled my small living room. When it finished, he played it again, this time with earbuds he produced from his jacket pocket, his focus absolute. After the third viewing, he looked at me with new intensity. "Mrs. Brennan, I need you to understand something. If this video shows what I think it shows, if Rebecca set up your son and he escaped, then you're in immediate danger. Kozlov doesn't leave loose ends. If they think Adam survived and might talk, they'll be looking for him, and they'll assume he'd contact you first. Someone already has," I said, and told him about the phone call, the woman's warning. Webb swore under his breath. That was probably Lydia Adams. She's an information broker, sells intel to whoever pays. If Adam went to her asking about Kozlov's operation, she would have taken his money and then likely warned Kozlov that someone was asking questions. She plays all sides. He handed back the phone. "You need to pack a bag and leave, tonight. I can arrange—" "No." The word came out harder than I intended. "I'm not running from my own home. And if Adam is alive somewhere, injured and hiding, I'm not leaving him to face this alone. Mrs. Brennan." "Hazel, I understand you're his mother, but this isn't a situation where maternal instinct trumps professional criminals. These people have killed for less than what Adam discovered. Then help me find him before they do." Webb studied me for a long moment, then sighed and sat down on my worn sofa without invitation, pulling out a small notebook. "Tell me everything. Start with when you last spoke to your son before the camping trip." I sat across from him and recounted the previous weeks, Adam's growing anxiety, his cryptic comments about Rebecca's behavior, the way he'd hugged me too tightly the last time I'd seen him, like he was memorizing the feel of it. I told him about the bank statements on the phone, The photos of the mysterious man, the desperate hope in Adam's voice on that video when he thought Rebecca was finally free. She convinced him she wanted out, Webb said, nodding slowly. Classic misdirection. Get him isolated, make him think he's won, lower his guard. The camping trip was supposed to be a reconciliation, a celebration. Instead, it was an execution. He looked up from his notes. Except something went wrong. Your son got away. The phone, I said. How did it end up in my mailbox? That's the question, isn't it? Someone found Adam, or he found them. Someone who was willing to help him but couldn't, or wouldn't, go to the police. Webb leaned forward. In my experience, that usually means people who have their own reasons to avoid law enforcement. Survivalists, off-grid families, maybe illegal immigrants hiding in the national forest. There are communities out there that most people don't know exist. A memory surfaced. Adam, 12 years old, proudly showing me his new compass. If I ever get lost, Mom, I'll follow the creek north, always north. That's where the good hiding spots are. We'd spent that summer exploring the forests, mapping trails, playing elaborate games of hide-and-seek that ranged for miles. He knew these woods better than most rangers. The video timestamp, I said suddenly. He was alive at 10:47 p.m. Rebecca reported him missing the next morning at 7. That's 8 hours. How far could an injured man travel in 8 hours? Webb pulled out his phone and opened a mapping application. Depends on the injury and the terrain. Mirror Lake is here. He pointed. If he headed north, away from the main campgrounds, there's nothing but wilderness for 15 miles until you hit the logging roads near Broken Ridge. That's where I'd hide if I was running. Then that's where we start. We? Webb raised an eyebrow. Mrs. Brennan, I'm not taking a 68-year-old woman into the woods on a manhunt. I'll go tomorrow morning, ask around, see if anyone's seen. I'm going with you, I interrupted. Those woods are my backyard. I know them better than any map. And if Adam is hiding with people who don't trust outsiders, they're more likely to talk to his mother than a private investigator. Before Webb could argue, headlights swept across my front windows. A car was pulling into my driveway, a sleek black sedan that gleamed even in the darkness. My stomach dropped. Webb moved to the window, peering through the curtain. Expecting company? No. Then we have a problem. He turned to me, his expression grim. That's Rebecca's car. My daughter-in-law emerged from the driver's side, her movements careful, almost theatrical. She was dressed in black. Widow's weeds, I realized, though the funeral had been a week ago. Behind her, from the passenger side, came a man I'd never seen before. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of physical presence that seemed to compress the space around him. He scanned my property with cold efficiency before nodding to Rebecca. The back door, Webb whispered urgently. Go, now. But I was frozen, watching through the window as Rebecca walked toward my porch, her face a mask of grief I now recognized as performance. She was coming to play the bereaved widow, to see what I knew, to gauge whether I was a threat, and I couldn't let her know I'd seen the video. Hide, I told Webb. The guest bedroom, second door on the left. Take Adam's phone with you. Don't come out no matter what you hear. Hazel, please. If she knows I'm investigating, if she suspects Adam might be alive, she'll do something drastic. I can handle her. I've been handling her for 13 years. Webb hesitated, then nodded and slipped down the hallway just as Rebecca knocked. 3 soft raps, tentative and sad. I took 3 deep breaths, schooled my features into grandmother grief, and opened the door. Rebecca, sweetheart. I let my voice crack slightly. What are you doing here so late? She fell into my arms, sobbing against my shoulder, her body shaking with what might have been genuine emotion or masterful acting. I couldn't sleep, she choked out. I keep seeing him, Hazel. I keep thinking if I'd just been with him that night, if I hadn't stayed at the other campsite because we'd argued. Hush now, I murmured, stroking her hair while my mind raced. An argument? She'd never mentioned an argument before. Come inside. I'll make tea. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. And that's when I noticed the man had followed her onto the porch. Up close, he was even more imposing. A jaw like carved granite, eyes that betrayed no emotion whatsoever. This is my friend, David, Rebecca said, her voice still trembling. He's been helping me with the arrangements, the estate paperwork, all the horrible details. I hope you don't mind that I brought him. Of course not. I stepped back to let them enter, every nerve screaming danger. Any friend of yours is welcome. They came inside, and David's eyes swept my living room exactly as Webb's had. But where Webb had been assessing, David was hunting, looking for something. Evidence? Witnesses? Me? I busied myself in the kitchen, filling the kettle, pulling out cups, while Rebecca settled on the sofa and David stood by the fireplace, his hands clasped behind his back like a soldier at ease. Through the wall, I could hear the faint creak of floorboards. Webb, shifting position in the guest room. Hazel, Rebecca began, her voice steadier now. I need to ask you something. Have you noticed anything strange? Anyone coming around, asking questions about Adam? My hand stilled on the tea canister. Strange how? The police closed the case, but apparently someone isn't satisfied with that conclusion. A private investigator has been following me, watching my house. It's disturbing, especially now when I'm trying to grieve. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. I'm worried they might contact you, try to suggest something terrible about me or about what happened. I wanted to warn you. So she knew about Webb, which meant she was watching him as closely as he was watching her. Why would anyone investigate an accident? I asked carefully, bringing the tea tray to the coffee table. I don't know. Rebecca accepted a cup, cradling it between her palms. Unless, Hazel, Adam was acting paranoid in those last few weeks, making accusations, saying I was keeping secrets. I think the stress of his job was affecting him. He even started following me, checking my phone, going through my things like he didn't trust me. A tear slid down her cheek. What if someone is using his paranoia to create conspiracy theories? What if they're trying to profit from our tragedy? It was a masterful performance. Paint Adam as unstable, preemptively discredit any evidence he might have gathered, position herself as the victim of both her husband's delusions and now an invasive investigation. If I hadn't seen that video, hadn't heard Adam's terror and Rebecca's panic, I might have believed her. That's horrible, I said softly. Adam would never want you harassed like this. No, he wouldn't. Rebecca set down her cup and reached for my hand. Which is why I need to know. If this investigator contacts you, will you tell me? Will you let me know what he's asking? I'm trying to protect Adam's memory and Roberta's future. I can't have people spreading lies about her father. She squeezed my fingers, and in that moment, I saw past the tears and the trembling voice to the calculation beneath. She was testing me, trying to determine if I was a threat or a pawn. I squeezed back and lied through my teeth. Of course, dear. We're family. I'll tell you everything. David spoke for the first time, his voice like gravel. Mrs. Brennan, has anyone contacted you? Anyone at all? I met his gaze and saw something that made my blood run cold. This wasn't Rebecca's friend helping with paperwork. This was Victor Kozlov's man, a professional enforcer, and he was here because they suspected Adam had survived. They were eliminating variables, tying up loose ends, and I was a loose end. No one, I said firmly. It's been very quiet. Almost too quiet, honestly. I'm not used to being alone with my thoughts like this. David nodded slowly, but his eyes never left mine, searching for deception. The moment stretched unbearably. In the guest room, another tiny creak. Rebecca's head turned slightly toward the sound. Old house, I said quickly, forcing a sad smile. Settles at night. Thomas always said it was talking to us, remembering all the years. I stood abruptly. You know, I'm more tired than I realized. Would you mind terribly if we continued this another time? Perhaps lunch tomorrow? We could go to that cafe Adam loved. Rebecca stood as well, relief flickering across her face. She'd accomplished what she came for, planting her narrative, warning me, assessing my loyalty. Of course. I'm sorry we came so late. I needed to see you. I walked them to the door, accepted Rebecca's embrace, and watched as they got into the car. David looked back once, his expression unreadable, before they pulled away down the dark driveway. I locked the door and leaned against it, my heart hammering. Webb emerged from the hallway, his face pale, they're going to kill you," he said flatly. "Tonight, tomorrow, soon. You know too much. And that man, David or whatever his real name is, he's been sent to evaluate whether you're a problem. And Mrs. Brennan, you just became a problem." I pulled Adam's phone from my pocket and held it up. "Then we'd better find my son before they find us. How quickly can you be ready to leave for Broken Ridge?" Webb stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Perhaps I had. But Adam was alive somewhere in those woods, alone and injured, thinking his mother believed him dead. And nothing, not Victor Kozlov, not Rebecca's lies, not the fear clawing at my chest, was going to stop me from bringing him home. "Dawn," Webb finally said. "We leave at dawn. And Mrs. Brennan? Bring that bat." Webb left at midnight, slipping out through my back door like a shadow, promising to return at 5 a.m. with supplies and a vehicle less conspicuous than his sedan. I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with Adam's phone, studying every photo, every message, every fragment of evidence my son had compiled in his final days. The picture of the man entering the building. I zoomed in until the sign became legible. Riverside Medical Supply. A quick search on my laptop revealed it was a pharmaceutical warehouse that had been investigated 3 years ago for irregularities in inventory control. The investigation had been dropped without charges. I screenshot the article and added it to a folder I'd created, organizing everything methodically. If something happened to me, someone needed to be able to follow the trail. At 3 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. My hand hovered over it, then answered. "Mom." The voice was barely a whisper, hoarse and pained, but unmistakably Adam's. I nearly dropped the phone. "Oh God, Adam, where are you? Are you hurt? I've been—" "Listen, can't talk long. Battery dying. I'm alive, but they're hunting me. Rebecca, Mom, she tried to have me killed. I got away, but I'm in bad shape. There's a family helping me. The Pritchards. They live off-grid near Broken Ridge. Old logging cabin, no address. You have to come alone, Mom. No police. Kozlov has people everywhere, even in the sheriff's department. I'm not alone. There's a private investigator, Marcus Webb. He's helping me." "No." Adam's voice cracked with urgency. "Mom, you can't trust anyone. Webb, I know that name. He used to work for Kozlov, did collections, enforcement. He's not investigating Rebecca. He's hunting me. It's a trap." The room tilted. I gripped the table edge, my mind reeling. Webb had seemed so credible, so professional, but Adam's warning echoed with desperate certainty. "How do I know this is really you?" I whispered. "How do I know this isn't Rebecca trying to isolate me?" "Cardinal rule," he said immediately. "Remember when I was 8 and got lost at the state fair? You found me by the Ferris wheel crying because I thought I'd never see you again. You bought me a caramel apple and told me that no matter what happened, we'd always have our code. Cardinal rule means trust no one but each other." His breathing was labored. "Mom, I need you. Please, come alone. Dawn tomorrow. There's a trail marker at mile 7 on Broken Ridge Road, a red X carved into a pine tree. Follow the creek north from there. 2 miles. You'll find us. I'll be there. I promise. Adam, I love you." The line went dead. I sat in the darkness, my mind fracturing into 1,000 competing thoughts. Webb was Kozlov's man, but he'd seemed genuinely concerned, genuinely helpful. Unless that was the point. Unless the entire performance had been designed to gain my trust, to make me lead him directly to Adam. Rebecca and David's visit took on new meaning. They'd come to confirm whether I'd been contacted by Webb, to see if their plant had successfully embedded himself in my confidence. And I'd revealed nothing. Pure instinct had made me cautious, even when Webb seemed trustworthy. But now what? Webb would be here at 5 a.m. expecting to guide me into the wilderness. If I refused to go, he'd know something had changed. If I went with him, I'd be leading him straight to my injured son. I needed a plan. At 4:30, I dressed in layers, thermal underwear beneath jeans and a flannel shirt, a weatherproof jacket, hiking boots I hadn't worn in years. I packed a small backpack with water, energy bars, a first aid kit, and Thomas's old hunting knife. The baseball bat went in as well, strapped to the outside. I looked ridiculous, a senior citizen gearing up like some geriatric commando, but I felt more prepared than I had in days. At 4:50, headlights appeared in my driveway. Webb's sedan, right on time. I met him at the door, backpack on, trying to project eager cooperation. "I'm ready. Let's find Adam." Webb took in my equipment with an approving nod. "Good. I've got a topographic map and—" He stopped, his eyes narrowing slightly. "You seem different, more confident. Did something happen?" "I didn't sleep," I said, which was true. "I spent the night going through Adam's phone again. I think I know where he might have gone." Also true, technically. "Show me." I pulled out the phone and navigated to the photos of the trail maps Adam had saved. He marked several locations here near Broken Ridge, places we used to hike when he was young. If he was injured and trying to evade someone, these would be logical hiding spots: caves, abandoned ranger stations, old hunting blinds. Webb studied the maps, his expression unreadable. "That's good work, Hazel. Really good. Let's get moving. We're losing darkness, and I'd rather approach these locations before full daylight, when we're less visible." We drove in silence, Webb's sedan climbing the winding mountain roads as the sky shifted from black to deep purple. I kept my hand on the backpack between my feet, my fingers finding the reassuring weight of the knife handle. Every few minutes, Webb glanced at me, and each time I smiled blandly back, the helpless grandmother along for the ride. At mile marker 5 on Broken Ridge Road, Webb pulled off onto a service road barely visible through the underbrush. "We'll go the rest of the way on foot. Less attention." We hiked for 20 minutes, Webb leading with the confidence of someone who'd traveled this path before. My legs protested. I walked regularly, but this was different, steep and demanding. Still, I kept pace, driven by the knowledge that Adam was close, that every step brought me nearer to my son. At mile 7, I saw it. A red X carved into a massive pine tree, exactly as Adam had described. Webb saw it too. He stopped, pulling out his phone, and I realized with horror that he was photographing it, sending the location to someone. "Hazel," he said without turning around, his voice different now, colder. "I need you to understand that I don't want to hurt you, but I will if you make this difficult. Where is Adam?" I backed up slowly, my hand sliding into the backpack. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. He called you, didn't he? Probably last night, probably warned you about me." "Smart kid." Webb turned to face me fully, and I saw the gun now, held loosely at his side. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to take me to him. I'm going to complete my contract, and then you're going to unfortunately disappear in these woods. Tragic accident. Elderly woman got lost hiking. Very sad. Or you cooperate. I make it quick and painless. And your granddaughter gets to remember you as the grandmother who died peacefully in her sleep. Your choice." "Why?" I asked, still backing away, trying to put distance between us. "Why does Kozlov want Adam dead so badly? He's an accountant, not a threat. He's a witness. He saw Rebecca kill someone at that campsite. Not him, someone else. A dealer who'd been skimming from Kozlov's operations. Rebecca was supposed to dispose of the body and frame your son for the murder. Make it look like a murder-suicide. But Adam ran before she could finish the setup. Now there's a body without a fall guy, a missing accountant who might talk, and a very angry crime boss who doesn't like loose ends." Webb raised the gun slightly. "Last chance, Hazel. Take me to Adam." A voice called out from behind Webb. "She's not taking you anywhere." We both spun. Rebecca stood 20 feet away, her own gun pointed at Webb, her face hard as stone. Behind her, 3 men emerged from the trees, all armed. Not David. These were different men. Younger. Hungrier. "Rebecca?" Webb looked genuinely shocked. "What the hell are you doing?" "Fixing a problem," she said flatly. "You think Kozlov sent you to clean up? He sent me. You're the loose end, Marcus. You knew too much about the operation, got too close to the truth. This isn't about Adam anymore. This is about consolidating power. Kozlov's out, I'm in, and everyone who worked for him gets retired." Webb's face went white. "You can't. He'll kill you. He'll kill everyone you love. He's already dead. Died in a tragic house fire this morning. Very sad. Rebecca's smile was thin and terrible. I've been planning this for 6 months. The gambling debt was fake, a way to get close to his organization. I'm DEA, Marcus, undercover for 3 years. And you just helped me close the biggest operation on the West Coast. My mind reeled. DEA? Rebecca was law enforcement? Then why had she terrorized Adam? Why the staged murder attempt? Mom! Adam's voice, from somewhere in the trees to my left. Get down! I dropped instinctively. Gunfire erupted. 3 shots, 4, the sound deafening in the forest stillness. Webb went down, clutching his shoulder. Rebecca's men returned fire at the trees where Adam's voice had come from. I scrambled behind a fallen log, my heart in my throat, watching as Rebecca advanced toward the tree line. Adam, she called out, it's over. Come out and I'll make sure you're protected. We can salvage this. You tried to kill me, Adam shouted back. I saw you shoot that man, saw you laugh while you did it. That man was a trafficker, a monster. I had no choice. He'd made me as a cop, was going to expose the entire operation. You weren't supposed to be there. You weren't supposed to see anything. Rebecca's voice cracked with what might have been genuine anguish. I love you, damn it. I was trying to protect you by keeping you out of it, but you kept digging, kept asking questions. The camping trip was supposed to scare you into backing off, not— You held a gun to my head, Adam said, and suddenly he was visible, stepping out from behind a massive oak, limping badly, one arm wrapped in bloodied bandages. His face was gaunt, but his eyes burned with betrayal and rage. You told me you wished you'd never married me, never had Roberta. You said I was a liability. So forgive me if I don't believe your sudden declaration of love. Rebecca lowered her gun slightly. Everything I said to maintain my cover, to protect you. Kozlov's people were watching, listening. If I'd shown weakness, shown that I actually cared about you, they would have used you against me. I had to make them believe I was one of them. Tears streamed down her face now. The man I shot was going to kill you, Adam. Not frame you. Kill you. I killed him to save your life. And you ran before I could explain. Convenient story, Adam said bitterly. Except I know you're lying because I saw the files on your laptop. I know about the money you've been funneling offshore. I know about the evidence you've been destroying instead of reporting. You're not DEA cleaning up crime. You're crime taking over the business. Rebecca's expression hardened. You don't know what you're talking about. Then explain the $2 million in the Cayman Islands account under your mother's maiden name. Explain why half the evidence from Kozlov's organization has disappeared from the federal database. Explain why you've been eliminating your own team members, one by one, staging them as casualties of the investigation. Adam pulled a flash drive from his pocket. I have copies of everything. Every transaction, every deleted file, every kill you've attributed to friendly fire. You're not taking down Kozlov. You're taking over his empire, and you've been using federal resources to eliminate the competition. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Rebecca smiled, and it was the coldest thing I'd ever seen. Well, she said softly, I suppose we're done pretending then. She raised her gun toward Adam. I didn't think. I grabbed the baseball bat from my backpack and swung it with every ounce of strength in my aging body, connecting with the knee of the nearest armed man. He went down with a scream. His gun fell. I grabbed it, having no idea how to use it but pointing it in Rebecca's general direction with shaking hands. Don't, I said. Whatever you've become, Rebecca, however deep you've fallen, that's still my son. And I will die before I let you hurt him again. Rebecca turned to me, and for just a second, I saw a flash of the woman I'd welcomed into my family. Young, uncertain, desperate for approval. Then it was gone, replaced by a calculating predator. You really should have stayed out of this, Hazel, she said. Roberta's going to be heartbroken when she learns her grandmother died trying to protect a fugitive. Roberta's going to be more heartbroken when she learns her mother is a murderer. Adam shot back. The flash drive is already in the mail to the FBI. 3 copies, 3 different field offices. Even if you kill us both right now, it's over. Rebecca's face drained of color. You're bluffing. The Pritchard family helped me yesterday. Nice people. Drove to 3 different post offices to make sure the packages got out. Should arrive tomorrow morning, with full documentation of your involvement in Kozlov's organization and your takeover plan. Adam's smile was grim. Cardinal rule, Rebecca. Mom and I, we always have a backup plan. For a heartbeat, I thought Rebecca might shoot us anyway, might decide that revenge was worth prison. But then sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Adam's backup plan had included one more element: a timed call to the real FBI, triggered if he didn't check in by dawn. Rebecca holstered her gun with visible effort. This isn't over. Yes, Adam said quietly. It is. The agents arrived minutes later, pouring into the forest clearing with tactical precision. I dropped the gun I was holding and raised my hands, my body shaking with exhaustion and shock. Adam limped to me, and I caught him as he nearly collapsed, holding my son, my alive, breathing, miraculous son, as chaos erupted around us. Webb was still on the ground, bleeding but conscious. Rebecca stood statue still as agents handcuffed her, her face empty of all emotion, and I held Adam, whispering his name over and over, hardly able to believe he was real. "I'm okay, Mom," he murmured into my shoulder. "We're okay. It's over." But as the agents led Rebecca away and she turned to look back at us, I saw something in her eyes that chilled me to my core. It wasn't over. Not even close. The FBI field office in Portland smelled of stale coffee and bureaucratic exhaustion. Adam and I had been separated for questioning 3 hours ago, and I'd been sitting in this beige interrogation room ever since, answering the same questions in different configurations. Special Agent Sarah Vance, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with prematurely gray hair, sat across from me, her recorder running, her patience visibly thinning. "Mrs. Brennan, I need you to explain again how you came into possession of your son's phone. I've told you 4 times. It appeared in my mailbox. No postage, no return address. And you didn't think to immediately contact law enforcement? My son had just died. The police had closed his case. I was grieving, confused. I watched the video and I stopped, forcing steadiness into my voice. I didn't know who to trust. So you trusted a private investigator with known ties to organized crime instead. I didn't know about his ties. He presented himself as someone trying to help." I met her gaze directly. "Agent Vance, I'm a 68-year-old widow who just discovered her son was alive and being hunted. I made the best choices I could with the information I had. If those choices weren't perfect, well, I apologize for not being trained in counterintelligence operations." A flicker of something, respect, maybe, or sympathy, crossed her face. "Fair enough." She leaned back. "Let's talk about Rebecca. How long have you known your daughter-in-law?" 13 years. Since she and Adam started dating. In those 13 years, did she ever give you reason to suspect she was anything other than a nurse? I thought carefully. She was always controlled, precise. She compartmentalized her life in ways that seemed extreme. Work friends never mixed with family. She never talked about her cases or patients. Always cited confidentiality. I thought it was professionalism. Now I wonder if it was something else. Did Adam ever express concerns about her before the camping trip? In the months before, yes. He said she was acting strangely, receiving odd phone calls, disappearing for hours. He thought she was having an affair. I told him to talk to her, to see a counselor together. My throat tightened. I told him to trust his wife. God help me, I pushed him toward the woman who tried to kill him. Agent Vance's expression softened marginally. "Mrs. Brennan, you couldn't have known. Rebecca Brennan, or Sarah Mitchell, her real name, is one of the most decorated undercover agents in DEA history. She fooled everyone, including her own handlers, for the past 8 months. The offshore accounts your son discovered? We're still untangling whether they were part of her cover or evidence of her corruption. Right now, we honestly don't know which version of Rebecca is real. The version who pointed a gun at my son is real enough," I said bitterly. Before Agent Vance could respond, the door opened and a younger agent entered, whispering urgently in her ear. Her face went pale. "Mrs. Brennan, I need you to stay calm. There's been a development." My stomach dropped. "What kind of development?" "Your granddaughter, Roberta. Rebecca's mother was supposed to bring her to a safe house this morning. They never arrived. Oregon State Police found the car abandoned on Highway 26, signs of a struggle, and both Roberta and her grandmother are missing. The room spun. No. Rebecca's in custody. She can't. Rebecca had partners we haven't identified yet. We believe they've taken Roberta as leverage. Agent Vance pulled out her phone, showing me a photo. This was delivered to our field office 20 minutes ago. It was Roberta, my beautiful 13-year-old granddaughter, sitting in what looked like a warehouse, her face tear-stained but defiant. She was holding today's newspaper. Behind her, barely visible in the shadows, stood a figure I didn't recognize. They're demanding Rebecca's release in exchange for Roberta's safety, Agent Vance said. We have 48 hours to comply, or they'll... She stopped, clearly unwilling to finish that sentence in front of a grandmother. Where's Adam? I demanded. Does he know? We're telling him now. Mrs. Brennan, I need you to understand that we cannot and will not release Rebecca. She's a federal prisoner facing multiple charges including murder, corruption, and racketeering. We don't negotiate with kidnappers, especially not when releasing the prisoner would endanger national security. That's my granddaughter. My voice broke. You have to do something. We are doing something. We have teams tracking the photo's origin, analyzing the background for location clues, coordinating with local law enforcement. But I need you to prepare yourself for the possibility that... I stood abruptly. No, absolutely not. I'm not preparing myself for anything except getting Roberta back safely. I headed for the door. Mrs. Brennan, where are you going? To talk to Rebecca. She knows who has Roberta. She knows where they'd take her. And she's going to tell me. That's not possible. She's in federal custody, no visitors. Then arrest me, I snapped. Charge me with obstruction, interfering with an investigation, whatever you want. But I'm seeing my daughter-in-law right now, or I'm walking out of this building and finding Roberta myself. Your choice, Agent Vance. She stared at me for a long moment, then sighed. 10 minutes. That's all I can give you. And I'll be in the room the entire time. They brought Rebecca up from holding 15 minutes later. She was in an orange jumpsuit, her hands cuffed, her hair pulled back severely. Without makeup, without the performance of normalcy, she looked younger and infinitely more dangerous. When she saw me, something flickered across her face. Guilt, maybe, or calculation. We sat across from each other in a different interrogation room, Agent Vance standing by the door. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Roberta's been taken, I said finally. Your partners grabbed her. They want you released in exchange for her life. Rebecca's jaw tightened. I don't have partners. Everyone I worked with is either dead or in custody. Then who took her? How should I know? I've been locked in a cell for 6 hours. I leaned forward. Rebecca, Sarah, whatever your real name is, I know you're capable of terrible things. I watched you shoot a man, watched you threaten my son, but I also know you carried Roberta for 9 months. I was there when she was born, saw you hold her for the first time, saw you cry because she was so perfect, and you were so terrified of failing her. That wasn't an act. That was real. Her eyes glistened, but her voice remained flat. You don't know anything about me. I know you're her mother. I know that whatever twisted thing you've become, whatever line you've crossed, there's still some part of you that loves that little girl. And I'm begging that part of you. Tell me who has her. Tell me how to get her back. Rebecca was silent for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. Then, Victor Kozlov isn't dead. Agent Vance stepped forward. What? The house fire. We found remains. You found the remains of a homeless man Kozlov killed 3 days earlier. Victor is alive, and he's known for weeks that I was planning to take over his operation. He let me think I'd succeeded, let me gather evidence and make my move, and now he's playing his real hand. Rebecca looked at me, her expression bleak. He has Roberta because he knows it's the only leverage that might actually work. He knows I'd burn the world down to keep her safe. Then work with us, Agent Vance urged. Tell us where he'd take her. Help us build a rescue operation. You don't understand. Victor doesn't have hideouts or safe houses. He has a fortress, an abandoned shipping facility near the Columbia River, reinforced, heavily guarded, impossible to breach without significant casualties. If you send agents in, he'll kill Roberta before you reach her. It's what he does. Rebecca turned to me. There's only one way to get her out alive. Someone has to trade themselves for her. Someone he wants more than a 13-year-old girl. Me, I said immediately. Take me instead. No. Rebecca shook her head. He doesn't care about you. You're not valuable enough. But Adam, she trailed off, the implication hanging in the air. Absolutely not, Agent Vance interjected. We're not sending a civilian into a hostage situation. Adam's already gone, said a voice from the doorway. We all turned. Special Agent Adams, Vance's partner, stood there looking stricken. He was in interview room 3. I stepped out for 2 minutes to get coffee. When I came back, he'd picked the lock and disappeared. Left this. He held up a note. Agent Vance snatched it, read quickly, then swore. He's going after Roberta himself. Says he won't let his daughter pay for his mistakes. She looked at Rebecca. How long before Victor realizes he's coming? Victor expects him to come. That's the whole point. Adam walks in, offering himself in exchange for Roberta, and Victor gets to eliminate the only witness who can definitively prove I'm corrupt and link my actions to his organization. He kills Adam, probably kills Roberta anyway, and disappears before you can mobilize a response. Rebecca's voice cracked. It's a perfect trap, and my husband is walking straight into it because he's noble and stupid and loves his daughter more than his own life. I stood. Then we go too. Right now. All of us. Mrs. Brennan. I'm not asking permission, Agent Vance. My son and granddaughter are walking into death traps because of a mess that started long before they were involved. I may be old, I may be useless in a gunfight, but I am not sitting in this building while my family dies. I looked at Rebecca. You know that facility. You know how Victor thinks. If there's any chance of getting them out alive, you're it. So here's my offer. Help us save them, and I'll testify on your behalf at trial. I'll tell the court you cooperated, that you risked your life to protect your family. Maybe it won't keep you out of prison, but it might mean you eventually get to see Roberta again as something other than a monster. Rebecca studied me for a long moment, then turned to Agent Vance. I want immunity for this operation. Full immunity for anything that happens in the next 12 hours. That's not my call. Then make it someone's call. Fast. Because Adam has maybe a 90-minute head start, and it's a 2-hour drive to the shipping facility. If we don't leave in the next 20 minutes, we'll arrive to find corpses. Agent Vance pulled out her phone, walking to the corner for a rapid, heated conversation. Rebecca and I sat in tense silence. 2 women who'd been family and were now something else entirely. Allies of necessity, bound by shared desperation. I did love him, Rebecca said suddenly, quietly. At the beginning, it was just a cover. But Adam was kind, patient, real. I loved him in spite of myself, in spite of the mission. When Roberta was born, I wanted to quit. Wanted to just be Sarah Mitchell, the nurse, and forget Sarah Mitchell, the agent. But they wouldn't let me. Said I was too deep, too valuable. And then I got in too deep for real, started believing my own legend, started enjoying the power. She looked at me with hollow eyes. You were right earlier. I'm a monster now, but I used to be human. I need you to remember that when Roberta asks about me someday. Tell her I used to be human. You can tell her yourself, I said firmly. After we get her back, Agent Vance returned. You have conditional immunity for the rescue operation only. But Rebecca, if you deviate from the plan, if you try to escape or harm any agents, the deal's off and you're facing federal execution charges. Clear? Crystal. They removed Rebecca's handcuffs, outfitted us both with bulletproof vests that felt absurdly heavy on my aging frame, and hustled us to an unmarked SUV. 4 agents would accompany us, with backup teams staging nearby but out of sight. As we drove through the rainy Portland streets toward the interstate, I thought about Adam as a boy, always running ahead on our hikes, always certain he knew the best path. I thought about Roberta, so much like her father, brave and reckless and convinced she could handle anything. And I thought about what I was willing to do, who I was willing to become, to bring them both home alive. The answer was simple. Anything. Anyone. Rebecca caught my eye in the rearview mirror. When we get there, stay behind the agents. Victor will use you as a hostage if he gets the chance. When we get there, I replied evenly, you're going to make sure Roberta and Adam walk out of that building alive, whatever it costs. Whatever you have to do, that's your only job. She nodded slowly. Understood. But as Portland disappeared behind us and the highway stretched ahead into darkness, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were all driving toward something irreversible. Something that would break us in ways we couldn't yet imagine. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Grandma, I'm scared. But Dad's here now. He says you're coming too, that you won't let anything happen to us. I believe him. I believe in you. Roberta. Somehow, impossibly, Roberta. I showed the text to Agent Vance. She swore. They gave her a phone. They're monitoring her messages, probably reading this in real time. I typed back carefully. I'm coming, sweetheart. Hold on. Be brave. Cardinal rule. The reply came instantly. Cardinal rule. I love you, Grandma. I clutched the phone to my chest and prayed to a God I'd stopped believing in when Thomas died. Prayed that I was strong enough, smart enough, to do what needed to be done. Prayed that when this night was over, my family would still be alive. The shipping facility loomed against the night sky like a steel monument to decay. Rusted cranes reached upward like skeletal fingers, and the Columbia River churned black and cold beyond the concrete docks. We'd parked a quarter-mile away, approaching on foot through abandoned warehouses that stank of rot and river water. Agent Vance held up a fist, and we stopped. Through night vision binoculars, she surveyed the main building, a 3-story structure surrounded by shipping containers arranged in defensive positions. I count 6 exterior guards, probably twice that inside. This is a fortress. The main entrance is a kill zone, Rebecca whispered, crouching beside her. But there's a drainage tunnel that runs under the eastern wall. Victor had it installed as an escape route. If we can access it from the riverside, it'll be guarded or booby-trapped. Agent Adams interrupted. This is too easy. Nothing about this is easy, Rebecca shot back. But it's our only option if you want to avoid a frontal assault that gets Roberta and Adam killed. I'd been silent during the drive, letting the professionals plan, but now I spoke up. Where would Victor keep them? If Adam offered himself as trade, where would the exchange happen? Rebecca considered. The main floor has an old administrative office with reinforced windows. Bulletproof glass installed when this was an active facility. It's where Victor conducts business that requires witnesses. He'd want Roberta to see what happens to people who cross him. Maximum psychological impact. So we're not just extracting hostages, Agent Vance said grimly. We're interrupting an execution. My stomach twisted, but I forced my voice steady. Then we'd better move fast. They tried to make me stay with the backup team. I refused with a quiet firmness that surprised even myself. I'm not trained for tactical operations, but I'm small, I'm quiet, and Victor doesn't know I'm here. That gives me an advantage you muscle-bound agents don't have. Plus, if Adam or Roberta see me, they'll know help has arrived. They'll stay calm. After a heated whispered argument, Agent Vance relented with conditions. I'd stay between her and Agent Adams, I'd wear a wire, and at the first sign of danger, I'd retreat. I agreed to everything and meant none of it. We approached the drainage tunnel from the riverside, sliding down a muddy embankment slick with rain. The tunnel entrance was half submerged, a concrete maw breathing out the smell of mildew and waste. Rebecca went first, moving with the confidence of someone who'd been here before. The water was ankle-deep and numbingly cold. 50 feet in, we found the first body. It was one of Victor's guards, throat cut, propped against the tunnel wall like a grotesque warning. Agent Adams checked the corpse. Dead maybe 30 minutes. Professional work. Adam didn't do this, I said with absolute certainty. He's never hurt anyone in his life. No, Rebecca agreed, her voice strange. But I did. I sent him instructions via Roberta's phone, told him about the tunnel, told him someone would clear the way. He thinks the FBI is helping him. He doesn't know I'm here. Agent Vance grabbed Rebecca's shoulder. You sent a civilian into a combat zone with false promises of backup? I sent a father to save his daughter with the only advantage I could give him. Surprise and a clear path. If your tactical teams had tried this, Victor would have seen you coming miles away. Rebecca pulled free. Keep moving. We're running out of time. The tunnel ended in a maintenance room filled with rusted pipes and electrical panels. A ladder led up to a hatch. Rebecca climbed first, listening, then carefully opened it into darkness. We emerged into what looked like a locker room, long abandoned, walls covered in graffiti and mold. From somewhere above came voices, shouting, then a scream that made my blood freeze. Roberta. I was moving before anyone could stop me, through the locker room door into a corridor, following the sound. Behind me, urgent whispers. Mrs. Brennan, stop! But I couldn't, wouldn't. That was my granddaughter screaming, and every maternal instinct in my body was howling for me to get to her. The corridor opened into a warehouse floor. Shipping containers were stacked in a maze-like configuration, creating corridors and dead ends. I ducked behind one, my heart hammering, and peered around the edge. 30 feet away, in a cleared space illuminated by harsh work lights, Roberta knelt on the concrete. Her hands were bound behind her back, her face bruised. Standing over her was Viktor Kozlov. I recognized him from the photos on Adam's phone. He was smaller than I'd imagined, almost grandfatherly with his white hair and kind eyes. But those eyes were cold as winter stone. And beside him, a gun pressed to his temple, stood Adam. My son's face was a mask of desperation and fury. Let her go. I'm here. I'm what you want. Let her leave. And you can do whatever you want to me. Victor smiled indulgently. Dear boy, did you really think it would be that simple? That I'd just accept a trade and let witnesses walk away? I'm disappointed. I expected more intelligence from Rebecca's husband. Please. Adam's voice cracked. She's 13 years old. She hasn't done anything to you. I'll give you everything. The flash drives, the password to the cloud backup, all the evidence I collected. Just let Roberta go. The evidence is meaningless now. Rebecca's arrest destroyed any credibility it might have had. A desperate, corrupt agent's husband trying to frame innocent businessmen? Victor shook his head. No court would believe it. What I need is permanence. I need to ensure that you, your mother, your daughter, all the loose ends, are properly tied up. He gestured, and 2 guards dragged another figure into the light. My heart stopped. It was Roberta's maternal grandmother, Rebecca's mother, Margot. She was gagged, her silver hair matted with blood. Your backup plan was clever, Victor continued conversationally. Mailing evidence to the FBI. But you forgot that people have families, have leverage points. Margot here was very cooperative once we explained the stakes. She called the FBI, told them the evidence packages were a hoax, that her son-in-law was having a mental breakdown. Very convincing performance. You bastard, Adam breathed. Business, Victor corrected. Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me every location where you've hidden evidence, every person you've shared information with, every backup plan you've made. And for each answer I believe, I'll let one of these lovely ladies keep a finger. He drew a knife, the blade catching the light. For each lie. Well, I'm sure you understand the incentive structure. Roberta was crying silently, trying to be brave. Margot's eyes were wide with terror, and Adam, my strong, gentle son, looked like he was about to break. I couldn't let this happen. Before I could think, before training or caution or sanity could stop me, I stepped out from behind the container, my hands raised, my voice loud and clear. Stop. Every head turned. Guards reached for weapons. Victor's smile widened. And here she is, he said with delight. Hazel Brennan, the matriarch. How delightful. You've saved me the trouble of tracking you down. Let them go, I said, walking forward slowly, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. You want leverage? You want someone who'll make Adam cooperate? Take me. I'm his mother. He'll do anything to keep me alive. Mom, no! Adam's voice broke. Get out of here, run! Silence, Victor commanded, and one of the guards hit Adam in the stomach with a rifle butt. My son doubled over, gasping. Rage flooded through me, hot and purifying. I'd spent weeks being afraid, being cautious, being the helpless elderly woman. But seeing my son hurt, my granddaughter terrorized, fury burned away everything else. You think you're smart, I said to Victor, still advancing. You think you've thought of everything. But you made one critical mistake. Oh? And what's that, grandmother? You underestimated me. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the small recording device Agent Vance had given me. Except it wasn't just a recording device. I'd modified it during the car ride, using parts from my old hearing aid and some wiring I'd pulled from the SUV's dashboard. Thomas had taught me basic electronics during our years building this house. I'd never forgotten. I pressed the button. The facility's emergency lighting system, ancient and barely functional, surged with an electrical overload I'd calculated based on the building's age and wiring specs Adam had mentioned finding in his research. Every light in the building blazed brilliant white, then died completely. Darkness. Total, disorienting darkness. Now! I screamed. Chaos erupted. The FBI agents burst from their positions, flashlight beams cutting through the black. Gunfire. Controlled, precise. Nothing like the movies. I dropped to the ground, crawling toward where I'd last seen Roberta. My hands found her. Small, trembling, sobbing. It's Grandma, sweetheart. I've got you. I felt for the zip ties around her wrists, remembered the knife in my boot, Thomas's old hunting knife. I cut through the plastic, pulled Roberta against me, and rolled behind the nearest cover as bullets sparked off metal somewhere to our left. Where's Dad? Roberta gasped. I don't know. Stay down. Don't move. But Roberta was her father's daughter. She wriggled free from my grip. Grandma, Margot's still out there. We can't leave her. She was right. Damn it. She was right. Together, we crawled through the darkness, using the muzzle flashes as terrible navigation points. My knees screamed in protest, my lungs burned, but Roberta's small hand in mine kept me moving. We found Margot still tied to a chair, now tipped on its side. Roberta worked on her gag while I cut her restraints. Margot grabbed my arm with desperate strength. Rebecca, she choked out. She's not what you think. She's... An explosion rocked the building, one of the shipping containers erupting in flames, casting hellish orange light across the warehouse. In the flickering glow, I saw Rebecca and Victor locked in hand-to-hand combat, both fighting with lethal precision. Nearby, Adam was wrestling a guard for control of a rifle. Agent Vance appeared beside me. Get them out. East exit, now. Not without Adam. He's FBI's problem now. You're a civilian. Go. But I couldn't. Wouldn't. I'd spent too many years watching from the sidelines, trusting authorities, being the good little citizen who didn't make waves. That woman had almost gotten her family killed. I grabbed the rifle from the guard Adam had just knocked unconscious. I'd never fired a gun in my life, but I'd watched enough of Thomas's hunting trips to know the basics. I aimed at the ceiling above Victor's head and pulled the trigger. The recoil nearly knocked me down, but the shot did its job. Victor flinched, giving Rebecca the opening she needed. She swept his legs, and he went down hard. In that moment of distraction, Adam ran to us, blood streaming from a cut above his eye but alive, blessedly alive. He grabbed Roberta, pulling her into a fierce embrace. The roof access, Rebecca shouted across the warehouse. Extraction point. Go! Agent Adams led the way, his flashlight cutting a path through smoke and chaos. We ran, Margot supported between Roberta and me, Adam limping but keeping pace, agents providing covering fire as Victor's remaining guards rallied. The stairwell was a nightmare of narrow turns and uncertain footing. My legs burned with each step, my lungs screaming for air, but I climbed. Behind us, more gunfire. Above us, the thrum of helicopter rotors. We burst onto the roof into a windstorm of searchlights and rotor wash. 2 FBI helicopters hovered, one lowering a ladder. Agent Vance pushed Roberta toward it. Youngest first, move. Roberta climbed with the fearlessness of youth. Then Margot, slower but determined. Adam was next, and I could see him calculating whether to argue about me going before him, but Agent Adams physically shoved him toward the ladder. Mrs. Brennan, you're next. But I looked back at the roof access door. Rebecca hadn't emerged. Neither had half the agents who'd been covering our retreat. Where is she? I demanded. She stayed to secure Victor. Now climb. I climbed. My arms shook with effort. My hands slipped on the wet rungs. but strong hands from above pulled me up and into the helicopter. I collapsed on the floor, gasping, as the aircraft banked sharply away from the burning facility. Through the open door, I watched the building shrink below us. Flames climbed its walls. Sirens wailed as backup teams arrived. And somewhere in that inferno, my daughter-in-law, whatever she'd become, whatever crimes she'd committed, was finishing what she'd started. Roberta curled against my side, and Adam held us both, his face buried in his daughter's hair. Margot sat across from us, shell-shocked but breathing. We were alive. Against every odd, we were alive. But as Portland's lights appeared on the horizon, and the helicopter carried us toward hospitals and debriefings, and the complicated aftermath of surviving, I knew this wasn't over. Viktor Kozlov had been captured alive amid the chaos. Rebecca's fate was uncertain, and somewhere in my pocket, Adam's flash drive held secrets that people had killed to protect. The real fight, I realized, was just beginning. 3 months later, I stood in my kitchen in Cedar Falls, watching the first snow of December dust the pine trees beyond my window. The house was warm, filled with the smell of cinnamon rolls baking, Roberta's favorite. She sat at the kitchen table doing homework, her purple pen flying across a geometry worksheet, tongue caught between her teeth in concentration the way Adam used to when he was her age. My son was in the living room, on a conference call with his new employer. After everything that happened, the accounting firm had quietly suggested he take a leave of absence. He'd accepted their severance package without argument, and now worked remotely for a nonprofit that specialized in financial forensics, tracking money laundering and fraud for international justice organizations. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. The timer chimed. I pulled the rolls from the oven, and Roberta appeared at my elbow instantly. "Can I have one now, Grandma? Please? They're hot. Give them 2 minutes." I smiled at her impatience, at the normalcy of it. She'd been through hell, we all had, but children are resilient in ways adults forget how to be. She'd had nightmares for weeks, had refused to sleep alone, but slowly, steadily, she was healing. Therapy helped. So did the knowledge that the people who'd terrorized her were facing justice. Most of them, anyway. The front door opened, bringing a gust of cold air and Margot, her arms full of grocery bags. She'd moved into my guest room a month ago, just temporarily, until she found her own place. We both knew she wasn't leaving. After everything we'd survived together, after the trauma of that warehouse and the long recovery that followed, we'd become something more than in-laws. We were survivors, bonded by shared scars. The market was chaos, Margot announced, setting bags on the counter. "Everyone panic buying before the storm hits." She paused, sniffing. "Are those?" "Cinnamon rolls," Roberta confirmed, sliding one onto a plate. "Want one?" "Absolutely." Margot caught my eye, and something passed between us. Gratitude, understanding, the quiet acknowledgement that we'd built something good from the wreckage of our lives. Adam emerged from the living room, ending his call. That was the lawyer. The trial date's been set. February 15th. The room went quiet. The trial. Rebecca's trial. The case that had dominated headlines for months. Rogue DEA agents' double life exposed. The evidence Adam had compiled, combined with FBI investigations and witness testimony, had built an overwhelming case. Rebecca, Sarah Mitchell, faced charges of corruption, racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder, and a dozen other counts. But she'd also helped save our lives. She'd fought beside us in that warehouse, had subdued Viktor Kozlov personally while we escaped. The FBI had recovered him alive, barely, and he was now in federal custody awaiting his own trial. Rebecca's cooperation had been invaluable in dismantling what remained of his organization. The question everyone asked was, which version of Rebecca was real? The corrupt agent who'd killed and stolen? Or the desperate mother who'd risked everything to save her daughter? "Will they make us testify?" Roberta asked quietly, her enthusiasm for cinnamon rolls evaporating. Adam sat beside her, taking her hand. "Probably, but we'll be together. And you can tell the truth. Exactly what happened, nothing more. The lawyers said your testimony about how Mom—" He caught himself. About how Rebecca protected you in the warehouse could help her case. Do you want it to help her case? Roberta's voice was small. She tried to hurt you. She lied to all of us. It was the question that had haunted us all for months. I'd spent countless sleepless nights wrestling with it. Rebecca had deceived us, had put Adam in mortal danger, had been complicit in crimes that destroyed lives. But she'd also been trapped in a role that had consumed her identity, had made impossible choices under impossible circumstances, and had ultimately chosen her family over her freedom. I think, Adam said carefully, that your mom made terrible mistakes. She did things that can't be forgiven easily, but she's still your mom and she still loves you. Those two truths can exist at the same time. Roberta nodded slowly, processing. Can I write to her? Would they let me? Yes. And she writes back every week. Adam pulled a letter from his pocket. I'd seen it arrive that morning. She wants you to know she's sorry. She wants you to have a good life, even if she's not part of it. That's not fair, Roberta said, tears welling. She should have thought about that before. You're right. It's not fair. None of this is fair. Adam pulled his daughter close. But we get to decide who we become after trauma. We get to choose whether it makes us bitter or makes us wise. I turned back to the window, giving them privacy, and watched the snow accumulate on the deck Thomas had built 30 years ago. I'd thought then that I was building a life that would stay simple, predictable, safe. Instead, I'd discovered that safety is an illusion, and simplicity is for people who've never been tested. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Margot had brought groceries, Adam's calls were done for the day, and Roberta's therapy appointment wasn't until Thursday. I approached cautiously, old habits dying hard, and peered through the peephole. Agent Vance stood on my porch, looking official in her FBI windbreaker. I opened the door. Agent Vance, this is unexpected. Mrs. Brennan. Sorry to drop by unannounced. May I come in? I led her to the living room, where Adam joined us, his expression wary. We'd cooperated fully with the investigation, had given depositions and testimony, and turned over every piece of evidence. What more could they want? I have news, Vance said, declining my offer of coffee. Viktor Kozlov died this morning. Heart attack in his cell. At least, that's the official report. The room seemed to tilt. Adam spoke first. You don't believe it was natural causes. Let's say I have questions that won't be answered. Viktor had enemies in custody, former associates who'd flipped, rivals who'd been arrested because of information he provided. He was also the key witness in several ongoing investigations. His death is convenient for a lot of people. Vance looked between us. I wanted you to hear it from me before it hits the news, and I wanted to make sure you understand what it means. We're not safe, I said flatly. Even with him dead, his organization still exists. People who want revenge, people who want to ensure we never testify. The immediate threat level is lower, Vance said carefully. Most of the upper management is in custody. But you're right that some risk remains. The U.S. Marshals are prepared to offer witness protection if you want it. New identities, relocation, the full program. Roberta made a small sound of distress. Adam's face went pale. Margot gripped the armrest of her chair. No, I said, and my voice was steel. Absolutely not. I'm 68 years old. I've lived in this house for 40 years. I buried my husband in the garden, raised my son on these 5 acres, survived the worst thing I can imagine surviving. I'm not running. I'm not giving these people the satisfaction of making me abandon my home. Mrs. Brennan, I understand the sentiment, but no, you don't understand. I stood, facing her directly. For 3 months, I've been afraid. Afraid of every car that drives too slowly past my house, every unknown number on my phone, every shadow that moves wrong. I've installed security systems and changed my routines and looked over my shoulder until my neck aches. And you know what I've realized? Fear is exactly what they want. Fear is how they win. Adam stood beside me. Mom's right. If we run, if we hide, we're admitting that they're still in control. I have a daughter to raise. She needs to see that we don't let bad people dictate our lives. We have evidence, Margot added quietly. We have testimony. We have survived. That's our power, not new identities and witness protection. Vance studied us for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I can't make you accept protection, but I can tell you that the FBI will maintain surveillance on this property for the next 6 months, and I can give you a direct line to my personal cell. She handed me a card. Any concerns? Any threats? You call me immediately. Day or night. Thank you, I said. That's all we need. To know someone's watching, but to live our lives on our terms. After Vance left, the 4 of us sat together in the living room processing. Outside, the snow fell harder, coating the world in white, covering old scars with fresh beauty. Grandma, Roberta said eventually, can I ask you something? Always, sweetheart. When we were in that warehouse, when everything was horrible and scary, how did you stay so brave? I considered the question carefully. I wasn't brave. I was terrified every second. But I knew something more important than my fear. What? That you and your father were worth fighting for. That family, real family, the people who love you and stand with you, that's worth any risk. I took her hand. Being brave doesn't mean not being afraid. It means deciding that something matters more than your fear. Adam wiped his eyes. Dad would have been proud of you, Mom. The way you handled everything. Your father would have had a heart attack watching me climb into helicopters and dodge bullets, I said wryly. But yes, I think he'd understand why I did it. We protect the people we love. That's not bravery. It's just being human. Margot brought wine for the adults and hot chocolate for Roberta. We sat together as the afternoon darkened into evening, as the snow turned the world quiet and clean. We talked about ordinary things. Roberta's upcoming school dance, Adam's new project tracking offshore tax havens, Margot's volunteer work at the local library, my plans to finally renovate the bathroom Thomas had always meant to fix. Normal. Beautifully, preciously normal. Later, after Roberta went to bed and Adam retired to the guest room he now occupied, Margot and I stood in the kitchen doing dishes. The TV in the living room was on low, playing the evening news. We heard the anchor announce Viktor Kozlov's death, heard the speculation about what it meant for ongoing trials. Do you think it's really over? Margot asked quietly. No, I said honestly. I think there will always be another threat, another person seeking revenge or trying to silence us. But I also think we've proven we can survive it. We're not the same people we were 3 months ago. That's for certain. She handed me a dish to dry. I never thought I'd be living with my son-in-law's mother, helping raise a granddaughter whose mother is in federal prison. Life takes strange turns. The strangest, I agreed. But I'm grateful you're here. I couldn't do this alone. You could, Margot said firmly. You absolutely could, but I'm glad you don't have to. From Roberta's room came the sound of music. She'd been allowed her phone back, restricted but present, and was listening to whatever 13-year-olds listen to these days. From Adam's room, the tap of keyboard keys as he worked late on something he'd promised to finish by morning. My family, broken and reassembled, scarred but surviving, imperfect but present. I thought about Rebecca, alone in a cell, writing letters to a daughter who might never forgive her. I thought about the choices she'd made, some evil, some desperate, some almost heroic. I thought about the testimony I'd give at her trial, the truth I'd tell about the woman who'd saved my family even as she'd betrayed it. The doorbell rang again. Margot and I exchanged glances. 2 visitors in one day was unusual. I approached cautiously and found a package on the porch. No delivery person in sight. My heart rate spiked. After Vance's news about Viktor, every unexpected thing felt threatening. I brought the package inside, examined it carefully. No ticking, no strange smells. Just my name written on brown paper in careful handwriting. Inside was a book. A photo album, actually. Handmade. The first page showed Roberta as a baby, Rebecca holding her with an expression of pure joy. The next pages chronicled Roberta's childhood. Birthdays, holidays, ordinary moments. Toward the back were photos I'd never seen. Rebecca at DEA training, looking young and idealistic. Rebecca with other agents, laughing. Rebecca's face growing harder over the years. the light in her eyes dimming. The final page held a note in Rebecca's handwriting. Hazel, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted Roberta to have these someday. Proof that I loved her before I lost myself, that I was human once. Keep them for her. Give them to her when she's ready, if she ever is. Thank you for saving her. Thank you for being the grandmother I could never figure out how to be the mother. You won that night, not through strength or weapons, but through love and sacrifice and the kind of courage that comes from putting others first. You're everything I used to want to be. Tell Roberta I'm sorry. Tell her I love her. Tell her to be more like you than like me. Rebecca. I closed the album gently, my eyes burning. Margot read over my shoulder, then squeezed my hand. Will you give it to Roberta? She asked. Someday. When she's ready to see her mother as complicated instead of just bad. When she's old enough to understand that people can be both victims and villains, both loving and destructive. I set the album in my china cabinet, beside photos of Thomas and Adam's childhood art projects. We all deserve to be remembered as fully human. The snow continued falling outside, blanketing the world. In the morning, Roberta and I would build a snowman. Adam would shovel the driveway. Margot would make her famous potato soup. We would live our small, precious lives, aware of darkness, but choosing light. I thought about the woman I'd been 6 months ago. Lonely, quiet, convinced my life's adventures were over. How naive she'd been. How wonderfully, tragically naive. I'd learned that age doesn't mean powerlessness. That wisdom earned through decades of living is its own kind of strength. That a grandmother with arthritis and a baseball bat could change outcomes when she refused to accept defeat. I'd learned that survival isn't pretty or heroic. It's messy and terrifying, and sometimes requires you to become someone you don't recognize. But on the other side of survival is the chance to rebuild, to choose who you'll be next. I locked the doors, checked the windows, activated the security system. Rituals that would probably never feel unnecessary again. But then I went to my bedroom, climbed into the bed I'd once shared with Thomas, and I slept. Not peacefully, not without dreams, but I slept. And in the morning, when Roberta ran into my room yelling about the snow, when Adam made terrible coffee and burned the toast, when Margot organized our day with military precision, I smiled. We were alive. We were together. We were home. And that, I'd learned, was victory enough. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the video on your screen right now. I'm sure it will surprise you.